This quote to me feels like the way Invincible looks at the multiverse, not as a gimmick, not as a way to bring people back from the dead, but to show us that the smallest changes to our characters could have the most dire consequences. One of the key differences between Marvel and Invincible is the appearance of the variants. Invincible variants all look exactly the same, apart from a few style choices. This is because they are all the same person, with the same life, but small changes along the way made them into villains. This is how a variant should be depicted. In Loki, a show I greatly admire, all but one Loki look entirely different and have such vastly different stories, it's impossible to actually believe that they are Lokis. One actually killed Thor, which is kind of crazy because our Loki could not even dream of doing that. These Lokis serve no real purpose in the story. They are inconsequential to our Loki, as the differences are so vast they are hardly the same person. Whereas in Invincible, each variant of Mark looks the same because this shows Mark and the audience that Mark could have very easily turned out just like this if his life and choices had been the tiniest bit different. It shows us that Mark being a hero is not a multiversal norm, which highlights just how special and unique our Mark is, whereas in Loki, these variants could quite literally be anybody. They have no ties to our Loki at all, because the two have such fundamentally different powers and abilities, and because of this, Invincible succeeds at the task Marvel fell flat in. The differences between our Invincibles are subtle. They're nuanced in comparison, and they're three-dimensional, despite fairly little screen time. Master Mark doesn't care about conquering the universe. He just cares about seeing his mother again. And it makes us wonder if the loss of Debbie would do the same thing to our Mark. And I've never asked a question even remotely this potent watching anything Marvel has created on the universe.
Our final number. Professor Charles Xavier.
The Multiverse of Madness and the Season 2 finale of Invincible both attempt the same thing, to show our hero on a journey through the multiverse. But with one key difference, the Season 2 finale of Invincible is not about the multiverse, it's about Mark trying desperately to save his family, whereas Multiverse of Madness is about the multiverse itself. I am just as confused as Marvel executives were when they greenlit this project. The film in nowhere needs the multiverse, and it's used for cheap gimmicks. We see fan-favourite actors return, and fan-favourite characters return, but they're not fan-favourite characters. They're variants we have never seen before, making decisions ours wouldn't. It's impossible for us to care if they die. The threat in no way actually affects our universe. And this is where Invincible succeeds where Marvel fails. Invincible uses the multiverse as a tool, and to tie it in even more, it is the only reason Angstrom is attacking Mark. If not for him gaining the memories of his variants right as Mark came to try and save the day, he'd likely still be building his utopia. But the multiverse has shattered his memories. The multiverse which usually sees our hero as the villain. Angstrom does not see himself as the villain, he genuinely thinks he is doing the right thing. Whereas the villain in Multiverse of Madness, Wanda, knows she's in the wrong. She's hard to justify, and her turn to evil hits us so completely out of left field. To call it poorly written would be an insult, because it implies that any effort actually went into writing her character. The multiverse in Multiverse of Madness was cool, but so radically different I genuinely didn't care about it in the slightest. And don't get me wrong, Invincible does have a few jokes, like Spider-Man and Batman, but these are passing jokes. They're only there because they're the kind of jokes our character would make in these universes. They're not just there for the sake of being there, and they're not the focus of the episode. The focus is our Mark, our universe, and our Mark's family. And that is what Multiverse of Madness failed to grasp. It failed to grasp that the multiverse by itself isn't engaging enough to make me care about it for 2 hours on end in a cinema.
You know, Max was like the sweetest guy ever before he fell into a pool of electric eels.
Okay, so to say that No Way Home was bad would be very, very stupid. It's a good movie, with good emotional hooks, good characters, and even better villains. It's a great Spider-Verse story, but it's not a great multiverse story. Everything that happens in that world is centered around our Peter, and this includes any actual impacts or stakes regarding our world. Peter makes an incredible sacrifice at the end of the film, But with this sacrifice, more or less all the damage done to his world has completely been reversed. The stakes are gone. The world is almost entirely the same after the movie. I loved this movie, and I loved seeing all my favourite characters and Spider-Man coming back. But looking back on it objectively, it felt like 2 hours of fan service. However, it does succeed where Multiverse of Madness failed, and that is giving us characters we care about, and having those characters grow in an organic way. Apart from the lizard, who becomes the pterodactyl man meme from the comics, Marvel actually succeeds at making me care about the movie's plot and story, but ultimately falls flat. The stakes are dire, but they never come to pass. And this is prevalent in every Marvel movie apart from Age of Ultron, where the Avengers still saved the majority of people. Infinity War had amazing stakes, but these in their entirety were reversed by Endgame. Invincible succeeds where Marvel failed time and time again. It had actual stakes, and a fully competent villain who actually got exactly what he wanted. In Spider-Man's world, nobody knows Peter exists, whereas in Invincible, everyone now fears Invincible. His variants destroyed entire cities, and for what purpose? Because they all had something to gain, whether that be entire dimensions to conquer or just moments with a lost mother. This fight punished Mark for not killing Angstrom. It shows us that Mark needs to grow up, and his character grows from this. Spider-Man learns the same lesson about not killing, and Spider-Man stays the same. Without the Invincible War, Mark would not have had it in him to brutally murder Conquest. Whereas, what lesson has Peter realistically learned? Name one important character that dies in any multiversal Marvel movie, because apart from Wanda, I genuinely can't. Whereas in Invincible, we see Rex, a fan favourite character, die as a direct consequence of Invincible's inability to kill. And to add insult to injury, he makes the ultimate sacrifice while staring into the same eyes his best friend has. This one death alone is better written than anything in the multiverse of mistakes. The stakes in Deadpool and Wolverine and No Way Home on paper are largely different, but if we actually look at it, we find that the basic goal is the same. Both are stories about heroes preventing any damage to their own universe. They have the power to do this. They are entirely unique. Whereas in Invincible, Mark is relatively powerless in the Invincible War, and his universe suffers as a result. Invincible isn't a story about godlike men changing the universe and saving the world. It's a story about a teenager who's in massively over his depth. The power to change the universe isn't in his hands, it's in the villains. And this is what makes the stakes far more potent. To conclude this video, all I really want to do is remind you guys that this is my opinion and the two properties have vastly different themes. Invincible's multiverse is used sparingly and with dire consequences. It feels like Marvel used the multiverse as a way to pump life into a dying franchise. But thank you all for watching, and if you do like this style of content, please leave me a comment and tell me how I can improve, or equally go tell me to go F myself in the comments. Whatever you think works really, I'm not fussy. But yeah, if you liked it, give that subscribe button a tiny little tap.